Naturally, I love that song. Thank you so much, Andrea. That was wonderful. And welcome, 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 everyone. We have six marvelous tellers ahead of us. And so, of course, because it's Zoom, it's not the same as having a live audience. So we would like, if you want to make comments about each of the storytellers, if you would put them in the chat, and they can read them afterwards. And people love doing that. So it will be wonderful. If there's anything you want to say about any of the stories, just put it in the chat, and they'll read it. And then afterwards, at the end, there'll be a time to tell everyone how brilliant and marvelous and wonderful they all were. So the thing about storytelling and public speaking, many people are very afraid of it. I mean, it's something that it's very scary, and that one of the things about a storytelling class is that you can get over some of that fear, but fear can grip you. So let me tell you about a time that it really gripped me. I had the kind of fear that was, it was the kind of fear that just grabbed you around the throat and just went up into your mouth so you could hardly speak. I could hardly speak. Let me explain. It was the late 70s. I was 18, standing by the side of a road in Canada, a long way from home in England. I was wearing a blue circular uncrushable skirt and holding a sign that said, "The Border." I was about to put my thumb out and hitchhike for the very first time, and that's why I was so terrified. Now, you might be asking, how did I get myself in that predicament? Well, I blame the whole thing on my mother. You see, my mother had a great love of adventure, but when she was 14 and growing up in Liverpool, the Second World War broke out, and England stayed at war until she was 20. So she said her best adventuring years were swallowed up by bombs and fear and rationing. So she was determined to relive them now vicariously through me. So while other mothers were urging their only daughters to read, to study, to go to college, my mother was saying to me, "Geraldine, for goodness sake, you study far too hard. Put away those books and go out and party." It's absolutely true. In fact, I am the only person I know who got a master's degree out of sheer rebellion. Well, when I was 18, I told her that I was going to go to the Olympic Games in Montreal with my boyfriend. And then we were going to hitchhike from Montreal to New York and then fly back to England from there. Now, on that occasion, I wanted my mother to be like other mothers. I wanted her to forbid me to go so I wouldn't have to, and I could tell her she'd ruin my life. But this was my mother. And she said, "Darling, let me help you pack." So that's how I found myself standing by the side of a road in Canada with my thumb out and my knees shaking. But at least I had my boyfriend standing next to me. He'll keep me safe, I thought. My boyfriend, Ivor, was very respectable. He was 5 years older than me. He traveled extensively, so he explained the rules of the road. "Geraldine," he said, "you always wear good clothes. That way you get a better class of ride. You never get in a vehicle where you're outnumbered. And when you're in that vehicle, you always chat to the driver to build a rapport. And if you do those things, you're less likely to be murdered." Murdered? I have a vivid imagination. I could just imagine my mutilated, murdered body being tossed out of a car on the outskirts of some exotic American city like Akron. I prayed, "Lord, please watch over me." And then I wanted to thank every car that whizzed past. But finally, an ancient, rusted out, two-door Chevy skidded to a halt. Now, I could see through the open passenger window that the driver was alone, which was good. But he had long, unkempt hair, a missing front tooth, and dirt etched in the deep lines of his face. And he said, "I can take you 40 miles. And Ivor said, "Thank you, sir," and got in the back seat with the backpacks. And he whispered to me, "You get in the front. You're good at talking. Build a rapport." So despite my misgivings, I had to get in. I reached for the seatbelt. It wasn't there. "Oh, it's no use you going for that," said the man. "That dropped off months ago." And he started that car. Well, it looked like a rusted out old jalopy, but he had something powerful under that hood, because we went from 0 to 80 in seconds. And the man only had one hand on the wheel, because with the other, he was chain smoking. And he was lighting the new cigarette with the burning butt of the old one. And he didn't have an ashtray. He didn't actually need an ashtray because right in front of the gear stick, there was a rusted out hole that went down to the road. And that's where he was flicking his ash and the still burning butts of the cigarette. Yeah. Well, I was focused on that hole. I was waiting for a spark to hit the engine and the whole car to explode. And I was just thinking, it's all right for my mother in encouraging me to have adventures. I bet she's at home in England, sitting in a comfy chair, having a cup of tea. Oh, for a comfy chair and a cup of tea. I had no idea there were so many ways to be killed hitchhiking. But then the man said to me, I've got a glass eye. Would you like to see it? And he took out his eye and he put it on my shoulder. I froze. I didn't want that eye going to my lap or down by my feet. I didn't want the man grabbing for it, particularly not as we were going so fast. And then I slowly turned my head. And I wasn't quite sure what to say. I mean, what is the protocol when you're eyeball to eyeball with an eyeball? So I turned my head a bit further to see what Ivor's reaction was. His eyes were closed. He wasn't in the death seat. He was taking a nap. I finally managed, that's fascinating. And that seemed to placate the man because he didn't say anything else until he dropped us off about 15 minutes later. But I was very relieved that from that point onwards, he kept both eyes on the road, even though they were 3 feet apart. I was so glad to get out of that car. I watched it disappear till it was just a speck in the distance. But all that time, that glass eye now back in the man's head, I felt it staring at me through the rearview mirror. But then I remembered something that my mother told me while she was helping me pack. She said, darling, she said, don't worry, I've prayed. So everywhere you go on this trip, you'll be safe. Because the Lord, he'll keep his eye on you. Thank you so much. I wish I could tell you that it wasn't true, but it was. And that is the only reason I'm sure I got a master's degree. Anyway, thank you.